Mayor and Council, my name is Jeff Snicer. Again, I live off Schubert Drive on the North Shore. I'd like to talk to you about the update that Manager Cheetham gave us tonight. And I'd also like to say that Manager Cheetham is a great employee of the city of Kamloops. I've talked to him at length. I think he's a great guy.
And you have a question at the end of this, right?
Yes, there is actually several questions.
Okay.
If you bear with me, this will take about 4 or 5 minutes. I'll zip through it. So tonight we heard Manager Cheetham give us an update on the CCAP. He focused a lot on the positives of the plan, but he didn't talk about how this plan is going to reorder our society and economy and what the results of these policies will be on the citizens and the economy in Kamloops. He talked about climate alarmism, the disasters that we face, but not about the effects on businesses, families, as they scramble to adjust to a more expensive future with less travel, less energy, and less freedom. He also told us that the CCAP doesn't account for all of the emissions in a holistic way. I believe that was Councillor O'Reilly that asked that question, and I appreciate that question because it is a great point. So my question, this is a rhetorical question, is where in the CCAP here does it say any of that information? And is this being marketed to the citizens of Kamloops accurately? I know that Manager Cheetham is focused on the positives, but we have to balance that out with what the effects could be on us in this city. I agree with many of the points that Manager Cheetham makes when he speaks passionately about saving the world from climate change and implementing a bicycle-centric transportation system. I myself ride my bike. I jog up and down Schubert Drive every morning. I've been doing that for 42 years. I used to ride my bike from Dallas all the way into Valley View when I was a young kid, which is super dangerous. There's no paths. I would love to see a path out there. Okay. So I'm a Kamloops native and I like to get around by bicycle. But I'd like to point out that the CCAP seems to only focus on achieving the goals without considering the costs of implementing these goals. Kamloops, like many other cities from around the world, has fallen for the same siren song of sustainable development. Well-meaning councils, and I have no doubt that this is a well-meaning council full of Kamloops natives like myself, we all want the best for the city, have adopted a doctrine of think globally, but act locally. Just like this motto, sustainable development plans that we're following were not developed here in Kamloops. These ideas did not originate from Kamloops, nor do they have Kamloops interests first. They are quite literally an agenda developed by the United Nations. It even has a name. It's called Agenda 2030. And that's actually mentioned in some of the documents, which I'll come back and speak to in a minute. It was on the agenda tonight, 9.4. In fact, our climate action plan reads almost word for word like the output from the United Nations conference in 1992. It's the same. You'll see direct quotes from the United Nations in the agenda 9.4. And I'd ask another rhetorical question is, when did Canada become a third world country in need of UN intervention? Plans from cities around the world are all the same, despite their differing local, environmental, energy makeups, carbon footprints, social, cultural, economic factors. They all recommend the same things. So why did the city spend thousands of dollars and take 2 years to develop a plan it could have just copied and pasted from 30 years ago? But more importantly, why is the city of Kamloops openly bragging about its commitment to follow international plans? These were not designed with Kamloops' interests first. Within the CCAP, we find such ideas as banning full-size vehicles. This is Big Move 2. Restricting traffic to neighborhoods to residents only. I have no idea how we would go about doing that. Creating emission-free vehicle zones. That's Big Move 3. Removing streets. That's called thin streets. Driving garbage hundreds of kilometers away. We know about the bins. And supporting expensive zero-carbon building, which I believe Manager Cheetham actually mentioned tonight that there is a retrofit code being considered by the province of British Columbia. That's only going to serve to increase the price of housing for Kamloops residents. These ideas will not save us from climate change. They will not create a more resilient city. In fact, it's hard to understand how some of these ideas, like banning cars from residential neighborhoods, what they have to do with climate change at all. One of the council's strategic goals is advocacy. And I'll quote directly. The city of Kamloops clearly and strongly advocates for Kamloops to other organizations and levels of government. And in the words of Councillor Beppel, who spoke tonight on the climate action plan, she said that it is a global agenda to control the climate change. If the council continues to promote agendas from the United Nations and fails to advocate against them on behalf of Kamloops voters, irregardless of what the provincial or federal government says, we could still say, hey, we don't like to do that. I'd like to ask you again another rhetorical question. Who are you really advocating for? The KCSC would like to remind the City Council, your job is not to save the world. You answer to the voters of Kamloops. As I said at the beginning, Kamloops residents don't want expensive housing. We don't want high utility bills or international agendas. We want local government that deals with local problems and makes sense. It's time to put Kamloops first. The KCSC has the following questions to the council through the mayor. Will the city commit to an open town hall on the climate action plan? As you know, the KCSC has already put one on and will continue to do that with or without the council's participation. But it's my hope that we will all sit down and have a productive dialogue on this based on facts. I'd also like to ask the city to provide the economic impact assessments that were completed for the CCAP, which should be around somewhere. Was there any consideration given to the increased costs of living associated with zero carbon building, and can you provide that documentation? What is the total cost, including staff hours and City of Kamloops resources to develop the CCAP? How much did we spend on it? And could you please provide those answers in writing to the KCSC? Again, respectfully to the mayor and council, I'll provide these questions in writing and I'll send them later. Thank you very much.